Read it out loud, Victor. Someone laughed from the back of the conference room. And he did. Standing in front of the entire department, our regional manager smirked and waved my termination notice like a trophy he'd just won. Effective immediately, Marin Pierce is being released for performance misalignment. The room went quiet for exactly 3 seconds. Then someone snorted. Phones lifted. I watched screens glow as they recorded my humiliation. Security stood by the door, arms crossed, waiting for their cue. Victor turned toward me, his smile sharp as broken glass. Don't look so surprised, Marin. You questioned leadership in front of clients. What did you expect? A medal. My hand shook. Coffee spilled across my notes, spreading like the shame burning through my chest. I wanted to speak, to defend myself, to explain that I'd only corrected his math because he was about to lose us a $60,000 contract. But my throat closed. So instead, I smiled. Because crying would have given him exactly what he wanted. I gathered my things while 23 people watched. My badge beeped red at the exit. Deactivated. The elevator doors closed on my reflection, makeup streaked, eyes hollow, career destroyed. That's when the full weight hit me. I was 34, unemployed, and completely alone. I drove straight to the only place that ever felt like safety, my parents' house in suburban Columbus. The rain had started, turning the streets into mirrors that reflected my failure back at me. Mom and Dad had always been practical people. Hard workers. They'd raised me on phrases like loyalty pays off and keep your head down and do your job. I'd followed every rule they'd taught me. And look where it got me. I pulled into their driveway at 8:15. The porch light was on, warm and yellow. I could see Dad through the window, watching television. Mom moving in the kitchen. Normal. Safe. I grabbed my suitcase from the trunk. Just a few days, I told myself. Just until I figured things out. Just until the shock wore off and I could think clearly again. The rain slicked my blazer as I climbed the porch steps. I knocked, then pressed the doorbell. Footsteps approached. Mom cracked the door open, chains still attached. Marin? What are you doing here? Mom, I lost my job today. I need a few days too. Her eyes dropped to my suitcase. Something shifted in her expression. You need to learn responsibility, Marin. Behind her, Dad's voice carried from the living room. Actions have consequences. I blinked rain from my eyes. I know that. I'm not asking for money. Just a place to stay while We raised you to stand on your own 2 feet, Mom interrupted. Her hand was already on the door. This is a lesson you need to learn. Mom, please. It's one night. You're 34 years old. You should have savings. You should have planned better. The chain rattled. The porch light went dark. I stood there for a full minute, rain soaking through my clothes, staring at the door that didn't reopen. My phone buzzed, a text from my landlord about next month's rent. Another from my credit card company. The world felt impossibly small and impossibly large at the same time. I walked back to my car, threw my suitcase in the back seat, and sat in the driver's seat until my hands stopped shaking. Then I reclined the seat as far as it would go, pulled my coat over myself, and tried to sleep. The rain drummed on the roof. Somewhere in the distance, I heard a train whistle. I didn't cry. Crying was for people who still had hope. I woke at sunrise with a stiff neck and the taste of failure in my mouth. My phone battery was at 11%. The windows had fogged over, making the world outside look soft and blurry a lie. I couldn't afford to fall apart. Not now. Not ever. I drove to a coffee shop with free Wi-Fi, bought the cheapest drink on the menu, and opened my laptop in the corner booth. My inbox was already filling up. Automated rejection emails from the applications I'd sent out over the past 3 months. Turns out, I'd seen this coming. I just hadn't wanted to believe it. Victor had been building his case against me for weeks. Every time I'd corrected a mistake, every time I'd advocated for a client, every time I'd done my job right instead of kissing his ego, he'd filed it away as evidence of my attitude problem. I scrolled through job postings, each one requiring years of experience I had but couldn't prove anymore. Not with terminated for cause on my record. My phone buzzed. An email with the subject line, Urgent. Operations audit needed. I clicked it before my brain could register what I was doing. The sender was someone named Ben Calloway, owner of North River Staffing. Need help immediately. Willing to pay well. Available? I met Ben at a diner on the east side of town. He was younger than I expected, maybe 40, with tired eyes and ink stains on his fingers. The booth was buried under paperwork, folders stacked so high they blocked the window. Half my placements don't show up, he said, not bothering with small talk. Payroll's 3 weeks behind. Clients are threatening to pull contracts. I'm drowning. I looked at the chaos. It was bad. Really bad. But I'd seen worse. How long has this been happening? 6 months. Maybe longer. I inherited this business from my uncle and thought I could handle it. Turns out, staffing is harder than it looks. I grabbed a napkin and drew a quick diagram: candidate flow, placement process, payroll tracking. You're losing people because your system runs on panic. Every fire feels urgent, so nothing gets prioritized. You need structure. He stared at the napkin like I'd just handed him a treasure map. Fix this in 60 days, he said quietly, and I'll make you a partner. I should have asked more questions. Should have gotten it in writing. Should have done a dozen things differently. Instead, I said, I'll start tomorrow. The North River office was smaller than I expected: 4 desks, 1 printer that jammed constantly, and a break room that smelled like burnt coffee and broken dreams. The 2 coordinators looked at me like I was the executioner. We're doing our best, one of them said defensively. Her name was Keisha. She had 3 kids and worked doubles to keep the lights on. I know you are, I told her. That's why this isn't your fault. The system's broken. We're going to fix it together. I spent the first week just watching, listening, taking notes. The problems weren't complicated, they were just layered. Candidate screening had no standards. Placements happened based on whoever called first. Payroll got processed whenever someone remembered. No wonder everything was falling apart. I started building spreadsheets. Simple ones at first, just tracking who was placed where and when. Then more complex systems for verifying hours, processing payments, flagging issues before they became fires. Keisha watched over my shoulder one afternoon. You really think this'll work? It has to, I said. Because if it didn't, I had nowhere else to go. By week 3, paychecks started arriving on time. Clients stopped calling to complain. Candidates started showing up for their shifts. Then looked at me like I'd performed a miracle. I've never seen it this clean. But I saw something else in his expression. Relief. The kind that comes when you realize you can finally let go. Week 7, he asked me to stay late. The office was empty, just the 2 of us and the hum of the ancient air conditioner. He slid a folder across the desk. Purchase agreement was printed on the tab. You run this better than I ever could, Marin. It's yours if you want it. My fingers trembled as I opened it. The numbers were reasonable, too reasonable. This was a gift wrapped up to look like a business deal. You're serious? Bank wants proof of stability before they'll approve the loan. You show them what you've done here and North River is yours. I'm tired, Marin. I want out. But I wanted to go to someone who'll actually care. I read every page twice. The terms were fair. Almost too fair. Why me? Because you didn't just fix the problems. You fixed them right. No shortcuts. No cutting corners. You treated every worker like they mattered. I thought about my parents' closed door. About Victor's smirk. About sleeping in my car. I'll do it, I said. Then smiled for the first time since I'd met him. Then let's make it official. The bank meeting was scheduled for the following Tuesday. I wore the same blazer I'd been fired in, dry cleaned now, but still carrying the memory of that day like a stain that wouldn't quite come out. The loan officer was a woman named Patricia Vance. She had sharp eyes and a sharper suit. She frowned when she saw my modest outfit. Your resume says you were terminated from your previous position. For cause. She said it like an accusation. I was. Then why should we trust you with a business loan? I slid a report across her desk. 20 pages of data I'd compiled over the past 8 weeks. Revenue increases. Client retention rates. Worker satisfaction scores. Because I turned a dying business into profit in less than 2 months. And I did it ethically. She studied the numbers for a long time. Too long. My palms were sweating. Finally, she looked up. Conditional approval. You'll need to maintain these numbers for another 90 days. We'll be watching. That's all I need, I said. Walking out of that bank felt like breathing for the first time in months. I texted Ben, we're moving forward. His response was immediate. Congratulations, boss. Boss. The word felt strange and perfect at the same time. That night, my phone rang. Mom. I almost didn't answer. But old habits die hard, and some part of me still hoped that maybe, just maybe, she was calling to apologize. I heard you're doing temp work now, she said. No hello. No how are you. Just judgment wrapped in concern. It's staffing coordination, actually. I'm running the company. A pause. Marin, be careful not to embarrass the family with whatever scheme you've gotten yourself into. The words hit like a slap. It's not a scheme. It's a legitimate business. Your father and I raised you better than this. Taking handouts, bouncing from job to job. I hung up before she could finish. My hands were shaking again, but this time it wasn't from fear. It was from rage. I'd spent my entire life trying to make them proud. Following their rules. Being responsible. Working hard. And the moment I needed them, they'd close the door in my face. Fine. I'd build something they couldn't ignore. Something that didn't need their approval. I'd build it fair. I'd build it right. And I'd build it without them. 3 months later, Ben handed me the keys in a plain white envelope. We were standing in the office, my office now, on a Tuesday morning that felt like every other Tuesday except it wasn't. It's all yours, Marin. The business, the building, everything. I whispered, we build from fairness. He smiled, tired but genuine. Then you'll last longer than most. He left that afternoon. Packed up his desk, hugged Keisha, shook my hand one last time. The door closed behind him, and suddenly I was alone in a business I owned. The weight of it should have crushed me. Instead, it felt like wings. I spent that evening reworking our policies. Every rule needed to be fair, not just on paper, but in practice. No favorites. No shortcuts. No looking the other way when someone powerful wanted special treatment. If a candidate showed up on time, they got paid on time. If a client demanded unpaid overtime, we walked away. If someone broke the rules, they faced consequences regardless of who they knew. Simple. Clean. Fair. It wasn't revolutionary. It was just right. And apparently, that was rare enough to matter. The big contract came in during my 4th month as owner. Westfield Logistics, a regional warehouse chain, needed 120 workers placed within 3 weeks. It was the kind of contract that could make or break us. My staff panicked. We'll never hit those numbers unless we cut corners, someone said during the emergency meeting. No, I said firmly. We do this right. Every candidate gets properly vetted. Every placement gets tracked. Every hour gets paid. But if we lose the contract, then we lose it. But we don't compromise our standards. Not for anyone. We worked around the clock. Keisha handled the phones while I processed applications. We brought in temporary help for interviews. I personally verified every single placement. We hit every deadline. Every single one. And we did it ethically. Westfield's operations manager called me directly. I've never seen a staffing company this reliable. You're renewing for another quarter, and we're doubling the order. I hung up and sat in my office for 10 minutes, just breathing. We'd done it. The right way. And it had worked. That's when I learned the most important lesson. Fairness isn't weakness. It's the foundation everything else is built on. Late one night, I was sorting through new candidate applications. The office was quiet except for the buzz of the fluorescent lights and the click of my keyboard. I opened the next file and froze. Neil Pierce. Application for warehouse worker, Westfield Logistics. I scrolled down. Donna Pierce. Same position. Same location. My parents. I read the applications 3 times, certain I was hallucinating. But no, there were their phone numbers. Their address. Their work histories, thin and spotty after years of bouncing between retail jobs. They'd applied through my company. They had no idea it was mine. I sat back in my chair, heart pounding. The universe had just handed me every weapon I'd ever need for revenge. I could reject them outright. I could place them in the worst positions. I could make their lives miserable. But I'd built this company on fairness, on rules that applied to everyone equally. So that's exactly what I'd do. My assistant knocked on my door frame. Those applications, do you want me to fast-track them? I shook my head. No exceptions. They go through the standard process like everyone else. Neil and Donna Pierce completed their applications, passed their background checks, attended orientation like the 40 other new hires that week. I watched from my office window as they walked into the training room. Mom was laughing at something Dad said. They looked relaxed, confident, like this was just another temporary gig before something better came along. They had no idea. The warehouse supervisor called me that afternoon. Got your new batch trained and on the floor. Most of them are solid. A couple might need watching. Which ones? The older couple, Pierce? They spent half of orientation making jokes about the rules. Said things like, rules are for rookies and we know what we're doing. Just thought you should know. I made a note in their files. First warning, attitude concerns during training. Keep me updated, I said. Over the next 2 weeks, more notes appeared. Neil Pierce encouraged others to skip safety protocols. Donna Pierce took extended breaks and told newer workers not to worry about the small stuff. Nothing major. Nothing that warranted immediate action. Just a pattern of small rule-breaking that added up. I documented everything. Then a recruiter called about a different matter entirely. Marin, you ever heard of Hale Distribution? They need an operations audit. Their manager's been with them for years, but something feels off about their numbers. What's the manager's name? Victor Hale. My pulse steadied. That name. That man. The one who'd humiliated me in front of an entire department. Send me everything you have, I said calmly. The files arrived within an hour. I spent 3 days analyzing them, cross-referencing timesheets with actual work logs, comparing reported hours against security footage timestamps. Falsified timesheets. Unpaid breaks. Manipulated quotas that made his performance look better while workers suffered. I wrote the report like I was documenting evidence for court, factual, surgical, unarguable. Every claim backed by data. Every accusation supported by proof. I sent it to Hale Distribution's corporate office on a Friday afternoon. The following Monday, Victor was no longer with the company. No drama. No confrontation. Just consequences for documented behavior. I filed the commendation letter they sent me. Not as a trophy, as proof that fairness worked even when it was hard. Week 6 of Neil and Donna's employment, the warehouse supervisor sent me a formal complaint. Multiple workers reported that my parents were encouraging people to work off the clock, arriving early to prep their stations without clocking in, skipping required breaks. They keep saying it shows dedication, the supervisor wrote. But it's making other workers feel pressured to do the same. Company policy was clear. Every minute of work got paid. No exceptions. I pulled their files. This wasn't their first issue. This was a pattern. I filled out the formal warning paperwork myself. Standard procedure for policy violations. My signature went on the line at the bottom, authorized by Marin Pierce, owner. The warnings were delivered by HR. Neil and Donna signed them without comment. That afternoon, maintenance installed a new plaque by the front entrance. North River Staffing owner, Marin Pierce. Mom walked past it on her way out. I watched through my office window as she stopped, read it, then kept walking. Her laughter had died mid-step. Recognition flickered across her face. But she said nothing. 2 weeks later, another issue. Routine compliance check found falsified training documentation in Neil's section. Someone had signed off on safety certifications that were never completed. The warehouse client, Westfield Logistics, had a zero-tolerance policy for safety violations. They requested immediate removal of anyone involved. I reviewed the evidence. The signatures were clearly forged. The timestamps didn't match shift records. It was sloppy and dangerous. Per policy and per client request, I authorized their termination. Process it cleanly, I told HR, exit interview, final paychecks, benefits information. Everything by the book. Both of them. Both of them. I signed the paperwork with the same pen I'd used to sign the purchase agreement. My hand didn't shake. This wasn't revenge. This was procedure. They were called to HR the following Monday. I wasn't there, didn't need to be. The system worked without me hovering over it. But I heard about it afterward. How Donna had opened the exit envelope and frozen. How her hands had trembled as she read the signature line. Neil, she'd whispered. It's her. They tried calling. Multiple times. I didn't answer. They tried showing up at the office. Security turned them away per company policy. Terminated employees needed scheduled appointments for exit questions. Finally, Dad sent an email to my work address. Marin, we need to talk. There's been some kind of mistake. We're your parents. Surely we can work this out. I replied from my business account, professional and brief. Your termination was processed according to company policy following documented violations and client request. All benefits and final pay have been distributed per state law. If you have questions regarding your exit paperwork, please contact HR. I copied HR on the response. Then I archived the email and went back to work. Because that's what this was now. Work. Business. A system that ran on fairness instead of favoritism. And in that system, being someone's daughter didn't earn you special treatment. It earned you the same fair process as everyone else. They'd taught me that actions have consequences. I'd just been a better student than they'd expected. That weekend, I drove past their house. Not to stop, just to see. The lights were on. Dad's car in the driveway. Everything looked exactly the same as it had the night they'd closed the door on me. But everything was different now. I kept driving. A month later, Westfield Logistics sent over a commendation letter. Worker satisfaction scores had increased by 40% since we'd taken over their staffing. Turnover had dropped. Productivity was up. Whatever you're doing, their director wrote, keep doing it. What I was doing was simple. Treating people fairly. Paying them properly. Enforcing rules consistently. No favorites. No exceptions. Revolutionary? No. Rare? Apparently. I framed the letter and hung it in my office, right next to the purchase agreement. Not as trophies, as reminders. Reminders that fairness wasn't soft. It was steel. And it worked. I hired 3 more coordinators. Expanded into 2 new regions. Signed contracts with 5 additional clients. North River wasn't just surviving, it was thriving. And I'd built it on the rubble of everything I'd lost. A courier arrived one Tuesday with a sealed box. Inside was Victor's confiscated work tablet, a copy of the audit commendation, and a handwritten note from Hale Distribution's CEO. Thank you for your integrity. We wish more people operated the way you do. I placed the note on my shelf. Not as a trophy, as proof that truth outlasts ego. That afternoon, I toured the Westfield warehouse. Workers clocked in properly. Breaks were taken. Safety protocols followed. Not because anyone was watching, but because the system made it easy to do things right and hard to do them wrong. My parents weren't there, but my system was. I paused beneath the entrance plaque, sunlight catching the letters of my name. I'd spent my whole life trying to make people proud who would never be proud. Trying to follow rules that didn't protect me. Trying to be small enough to fit into spaces that were never meant for me. And then I'd lost everything. And in losing everything, I'd found the one thing that mattered, my own spine. I didn't get revenge on my parents. I didn't destroy Victor out of spite. I didn't build North River to prove anything to anyone. I built it because it was right. Because workers deserve to be treated fairly. Because rules should protect people, not powerful egos. Because someone had to care about doing things correctly, even when it was harder. And somewhere along the way, that foundation of fairness became my victory. Not the loud, dramatic kind. The quiet kind. The kind that compounds over time. The kind that builds something lasting. My parents tried reaching out one more time, months later. A card arrived at the office. No return address, but I recognized Mom's handwriting. We're proud of what you've built. We always knew you'd succeed. I read it twice. Then I filed it away with all the other documents, evidence of who they were, not who they pretended to be. I didn't write back. Some bridges don't need rebuilding. Some doors don't need reopening. Some people teach you everything you need to know by showing you exactly who they are when you're at your lowest. That spring, I hired my 50th employee. We'd grown from 4 desks to 2 full offices. Revenue had tripled. Client retention was at 97%. Keisha became my operations director. "Remember when you drew that diagram on a napkin?" she asked one afternoon. I remember thinking I had no idea if it would actually work. "But you knew it was right." "Yeah, I knew that much." She smiled. "That's the difference between you and everyone else. Most people know what's right. You're the one who actually does it." I didn't feel heroic. I felt tired. Building something fair in an unfair world was exhausting. Every day brought new challenges, clients who wanted shortcuts, workers who tested boundaries, systems that threatened to slip back into chaos. But every day I chose fairness again. And again. And again. And slowly, impossibly, it worked. A reporter called wanting to interview me for a small business feature. "What's your secret?" she asked. "There's no secret. Just rules that apply to everyone equally. No favorites. No exceptions. That's it. That's everything." The article ran the following month. 3 new clients called. 7 candidates applied specifically because they'd heard North River treated people right. Fairness, it turned out, was good business. Who knew? That night, alone in my office, I thought about the terrified woman who'd slept in her car. The one who'd stood on her parents' porch in the rain. The one who'd watched her termination notice get read aloud like a joke. She felt like a stranger now. Someone I used to be. Someone I'd had to bury to become who I was now. I didn't miss her. But I was grateful to her. For surviving. For refusing to break. For taking that first meeting with Ben even though she had every reason to give up. She'd saved me by refusing to quit. And I'd honored her by building something worth surviving for. Year 2 of owning North River, I bought a house. Nothing fancy, just a small 3-bedroom with a yard and a porch. But it was mine. Bought with money I'd earned through work I was proud of. I hired a contractor to install a plaque by the front door, home of Marin Pierce. Not flashy. Not vengeful. Just factual. I sent a photo to my parents' address with no note. Just the image. Let them make of it what they would. They never responded. I didn't expect them to. Some stories don't have neat endings. Some relationships don't get restored. Some people never learn the lessons you desperately wish they would. And that's okay. You can't control other people's growth. You can only control your own. I'd grown. From someone who needed their approval to someone who didn't need anything from them at all. That was its own kind of freedom. 3 years after losing my job, I was invited to speak at a regional business conference. The topic: ethical operations in high-pressure industries. I almost declined. Public speaking wasn't my strength. But Keisha pushed me. People need to hear this. They need to know it's possible to do well by doing right. So I went. Standing on that stage, looking out at 200 faces, I felt the ghost of that conference room where Victor had humiliated me. Same setup. Different outcome. I got fired for questioning unethical practices. I began. Best thing that ever happened to me. I told them about building North River. About the workers who deserved fair treatment. About the clients who valued integrity. About the simple, radical act of creating systems that protected people instead of exploiting them. You don't need to be cruel to be successful, I said. You don't need to cut corners to profit. You just need to be fair. Consistently. Even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. The applause felt surreal. Afterward, people lined up to talk to me. To ask questions. To share their own stories of unfair systems and the courage it took to push back. I gave them the only advice that mattered. Build something you're proud of. Let the results speak for themselves. 5 years after my termination, North River Staffing employed 200 workers across 4 states. We'd become known as the staffing company that actually cared. The one that paid fairly, treated people right, and never compromised its standards. I walked through the main office one morning, watching coordinators process placements, answer calls, solve problems. The system hummed along without me micromanaging because it was built right from the foundation up. My parents never reached out again. Victor moved to another state after 3 more companies fired him for similar issues. Then retired to Florida and sent me a card every year. Still proud of what you built. I kept every card. That afternoon, I stood in the warehouse again, the same one where my parents had worked and lost their positions. New workers were training, learning the rules, understanding that this company would protect them if they followed the system. The supervisor approached. "Ms. Pierce, just wanted you to know, this is the best run operation I've seen in 20 years. "That's because we do it right," I said simply. I paused beneath the entrance plaque one more time, the sunlight catching my name in bronze letters. I didn't get revenge. I didn't destroy anyone. I didn't prove myself to people who would never see my value. I just built something honest and let it speak for me. And that finally felt like victory. Not loud, not dramatic, just real. The quiet kind that lasts.